Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking some incredibly eye-opening source material that takes a hard look at the systemic traps of modern debt. We're going to be exploring the uncomfortable truths about how society kind of conditions us to handle money. And then we're going to examine a really fascinating alternative wealth building strategy derived directly from our sources. If you've ever felt like your money is just working harder for everyone else than it is for you, well, you're absolutely going to want to pay close attention to today's breakdown. Okay, let's dive right into this. I want you to really think about your monthly routine for a second. Mortgages, car payments, credit cards, student loans. How many checks do you write to someone else's bank every single month? Seriously, think about that number. Now, imagine what it would actually mean to write all of those checks back to yourself. That is the core premise we're exploring today, the concept of recapturing the wealth that is currently, well, just leaking out of your life. So let's jump into section 1, the financial denial trap, avoiding reality. Before we can even get to the solution, our sources tell us we have to confront the problem. And debt isn't just a math problem, is it? It's deeply emotional. The source material highlights this heavy psychological burden we carry. We're talking about the fear of judgment from others, the constant anxiety over instability, the cultural pull of instant gratification, and yeah, those overwhelming feelings of shame and isolation. These emotional triggers literally push people into a state of denial. We ignore the bills, we completely avoid the conversations, and we just keep spending to feel better. And that right there is exactly what prevents us from making empowered, rational financial choices. Moving on to section 2, the true cost of debt, mathematical realities. We're shifting gears now from that heavy psychological toll to the harsh mathematical realities of borrowing. This illustrates the relentless snowball of compounding interest. Small debts, which, by the way, are so often fueled by hidden fees and misleading introductory rates, they don't just sit there. They quietly snowball over time. When you're paying compounding interest to a bank, you're essentially funding their wealth-building machine while completely depleting your own. And the really scary part? The longer you stay in that cycle, the steeper that curve gets. Which brings us to section 3, become your own bank. Take back control. So, how exactly do we flip that curve? Well, the source material suggests a massive paradigm shift. It's all about taking back control of the banking functions in your own life. But doing this requires understanding a pretty stark choice. The source contrasts the easy, traditional path of conformity against the challenging but rewarding path of creation. Conformity basically means following the herd, right? Using traditional banks, paying interest to others, falling for mindless consumerism. On the flip side, creation requires a total shift. It means using a private banking system to recapture that interest and really practicing intentional spending. It's essentially asking you to fundamentally rethink your entire relationship with money. To make this concept a bit more accessible, the source uses this great metaphor. They say it's literally taking money from this pocket, moving it around a process, and putting it back in this pocket. Both pockets are yours. Think about that. Instead of paying a third-party lender, you're moving your own money through a specific process to recapture the interest. The money literally never leaves your pockets, so to speak. Now let's get into the mechanics in section 4, the infinite banking solution. All right, now we dive into the specific financial vehicle the source presents to actually make this all happen. The infinite banking concept. This was originally pioneered by R. Nelson Nash, and it involves utilizing a specially designed dividend-paying whole life insurance policy to finance your own purchases. So instead of a traditional bank account, you use this specific type of insurance policy, which actually builds cash value over time, as your own private bank. The core idea here is that the policy acts as a highly predictable storehouse for your wealth, all while you use it to navigate your day-to-day expenses. Now, you might be wondering, why an insurance policy? Well, the source claims that these specially engineered policies come with a guaranteed interest floor. We're talking often between 2% and 3.75%. That means your money is contractually guaranteed to grow, no matter what. On top of that, because these are mutually owned companies, they pay out potential tax-free dividends. According to the source, this combination historically outpaces what you'd earn just leaving your money sitting in a standard checking or savings account. So let's walk through the 3 fundamental steps presented for how this builds into an actual workable strategy. Step 1, you fund that specially designed whole life policy. Step 2, when you need to buy a car or maybe pay off a credit card, you borrow against the death benefit, using your growing cash value as collateral. And step 3, you pay that loan back with the interest you would have otherwise paid a bank. The absolutely critical takeaway here is that you are borrowing the insurance company's money, not actually withdrawing your own, and that protects your core principle. Which brings up this incredibly provocative question straight from our source material. What if you could spend and save at the exact same time? Sounds impossible, right? But because you borrowed the insurance company's money against your death benefit, your original cash value is still just sitting there in your account. The source explains this concept as uninterrupted compounding interest. Your money literally never stops earning dividends and interest, even while you're simultaneously using a loan to finance your life. It's a real game changer. To illustrate just how powerful this compounding growth mechanism can become over time, the source shares a pretty wild personal anecdote. They report checking an older, mature policy and realizing a 95% cash-on-cash return in a single year, meaning the guaranteed interest and dividends earned that specific year nearly equaled the total premium paid into the policy. And that's purely because of the uninterrupted compounding effect over many years. Let's move to our final stage, Section 5, from borrower to lender. Once you've mastered financing your own life, the source material outlines this final evolutionary step, actually becoming the bank for other people through a concept called capital stacking. Check this out. Let's say you find a real estate investor who needs $100,000, and they're willing to pay a 12% return. Well, you don't need all $100,000 yourself. You could pull $40,000 from your policy, partner with someone who has $30,000 in a self-directed IRA, and maybe someone else using a $30,000 HELOC. You stack the capital, fund the deal, and then you make a spread on the interest. The source really emphasizes that wealth building isn't about having all the resources yourself. It's about being resourceful. Wow, we've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, haven't we? From the psychological traps of debt to the mechanics of uninterrupted compounding interest and even capital stacking. So I want to leave you with a final question posed by our sources. Will you choose conformity or creation? Will you just stay on the traditional path? Or are you truly ready to rethink your relationship with money? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this leaves you eager to explore these concepts even further.